Where do we begin, baby? Where do we begin? She's so awkward right now. This is a doozy. This is a doozy. You might notice that periodically I'll glance to my left off screen at my lovely girlfriend Alex, who is so graciously sitting in this dingy ass garage with me, reading off some facts because I want to make sure that I report everything that is occurring, that's happening correctly. I'll say, this is a conflict that spans over the course of 100 years. So it's 100 years of turmoil, 100 years of war, 100 years of borders shifting, and 100 years of bullshit. Too much bullshit for me to remember. I'm just one man. And this is breaking news. So over the course of the past 2-3 days, I've collectively done about 10 hours of research. And I'm going to have my girlfriend here to kind of help me out and kind of guide me through step by step, starting from 1896 all the way to present day with the conflict we have now. She's going to just kind of guide me through all of the conflicts, I guess, the talking points. Look, before we get into that, man, I want to just say, how you guys doing? This past weekend, I was fortunate enough to attend the beautiful gathering of friends and family to discover the gender of the child-to-be of my dear friend Isaac and his lovely wife Dana. Congrats, guys. They're having a girl, by the way. Yeah, give it up. Girls clapping over there. She was team girl. I was team boy. That's besides the point. But while we were there, kind of towards the end, things were dying down and there was small chattering amongst groups. Gatherings kind of go. At the end, you kind of click up and everyone's kind of talking, mixing and mingling. I couldn't help but notice that there's whispers, you know what I'm saying? There was chattering. The way my girl looks at me is hilarious. But there was chattering, right? There was murmuring occurring, right? I'm talking to you, right? I mean, and it was soon revealed to me at said gathering exactly what was happening. The attacks of Israel by the Hamas forces. Now, growing up in the States, being a child of 9/11, kind of catching the aftermath and seeing the effect that it had on this country and the world at large, and being, witnessing firsthand to a conflict in the Middle East that we all grew up with. It's not uncommon, really, to hear about conflicts happening overseas, it's like there's another war happening in the Middle East. How many U.S. troops are involved? None? Fuck it. And as harsh as that sounds, I mean, that was just the reality growing up. Because a conflict in the Middle East was just an everyday thing. It was another day, another dollar. But there was something about this conflict in particular that was different. And it wasn't the matter in which it happened, which was fucked up. It was beyond fucked up. It wasn't when it happened, but who it happened to. You see, growing up, Israel was like one of those countries that almost appeared untouchable. It seemed like the only person that could really fuck with Israel had to have been some Western superpower or China or some major player in the game of as far as countries go. You didn't think that this little Gaza Strip would be able to do or capable of doing this much damage to a country like Israel that has the most powerful military in the Middle East, the highest grossing economy in the Middle East, one of the best trained militaries, not only in the Middle East, but in the world. I mean, when you think of threats as far as Israel goes, you don't think of the Gaza Strip. You think of like the U.S. That's a U.S. threat. That's not a Gaza threat. And so to hear that Israel was caught the way they were caught, with their pants down in such a violent manner, was quite disturbing. I don't know about you, babe, but sent chills down my spine. You feel me? And I mean, I'm sure you know, like much of our friends and family, you've been keeping up with what's been going on like social media, TikTok. You don't have Twitter, but you've seen some like fucked up shit, you know? And that's like the censored part of the internet. But if you were to go to like 4chan or Twitter or Reddit, you'd see some really, really horrific, graphic shit. So again, it's so jarring the way that this is all unfolding and how rapidly it's unfolding. But there's a common misconception about this here conflict that we should clear up. People hear the name Israel and conflict, and they start dating things back to like AC, BC, this holy war that's wrapped up in religion. And no, it's not that convoluted. It's actually a conflict that dates back to only 100 years ago, a century ago, to 1896. And it's actually more so about a land grab than it is religion. It's more so about two nations, or one nation, one territory, fighting over the same land, arguing about which land belongs to who. Clearly, it's a very tough dispute to settle because we've been dealing with this for, like I said, over 100 years. But I want to take this back to the beginning. If there's a point to pinpoint where this conflict began, we speculate that it's 1896 with a man by the name of Theodor Herzl. Theodor Herzl was I cringe every time I say this word, but please bear with me. I was told that it's a PC word. So he was a Jew. He was a Jew. My girl's off camera laughing at me. He was a practitioner of the Jewish faith in Europe. And like in much of Europe at that time, and really much throughout world history, practicing Jews often faced heavy persecution. If you like look at the history of the Jewish population, I mean, it's like hot potato. They move from nation to nation because it's like they settle at one place, they face religious persecution, and they're forced to leave. And this has kind of been their life, you know, since the dawn of their religion, essentially. And so it doesn't change in 1896. But what does change is Mr. Theodor Herzl. He creates a movement that today we call Zionism. And what Zionism seeks to do was sort of create like a home base, if you will, for Judaism, for Jewish people, sort of a homeland, a state, a piece of land on this here planet that they could call their own, and they could freely and safely practice their religion. Well, there was one piece of land in particular that they liked, and it's the land that today we know as Israel, but at that time was under the control of the Ottoman Empire. And so this movement kind of gains steam, it gains momentum, and it's now 20 years later, and we are in World War I. And babe, the World War I spans from 1914 to 1918. Thank you. And so during the period of World War I, you have Palestinians at the time who also shared the region with the Ottoman Empire, who also wanted a plot of land in the Middle East that they could call their own. Well, I mean, look, this is what the West does when we fight a war. You know, we're the masters of like not getting our hands dirty. We like to do what's called a proxy war. And if you're, you know, not living under a rock in 2023, then you know that we're currently fighting a proxy war over in the Eastern Front with Europe, with Ukraine and Russia, fighting a proxy war. What a proxy war is essentially you're funding a nation to fight another nation. So if, let's say, I, Iman Augustus, have a bully down the street, and this bully could whoop my ass, but I want what that bully has. Instead of me going and getting my ass whooped, or even if I win, even getting a blackened eye, I don't want that shit. I don't want to fight Icky. What I'll do is I'll go to the next street over and I'll pay the biggest guy on that street to come beat the shit out of my bully, so I could then take what my bully has without even throwing a punch. It's genius, controversial nonetheless, but genius. And that's exactly what the West did with Palestine and how they toppled the Ottoman Empire during the First World War. And one of the major selling points that the West promised Palestine that aligned us with them was we would give them a piece of land in the Middle East. Well, the war wages on. We now get to 1917, and God damn it, it worked. We have officially taken control of the Middle East. We've toppled the Ottoman Empire, and damn, now these Palestinians are wanting land. Sure, yeah, we'll give that land to you guys, but first, we've got this guy Theodore over in Europe, and look, he's been preaching like this Zionism thing for a while, and we want to go ahead and give him a piece of land as well, and we'll take the Middle East, we'll carve out a piece of land, and we'll call it Israel. Excuse me. So Palestine never gets the land that was promised to them, the land that they fought this fuck-ass proxy war for. So already you have tensions beginning to bubble. And this takes us to 1920, where you have the British Mandate. And the British Mandate essentially gave the Jewish population in Europe an established homeland of Israel. And what happens with that is you have millions of Jews all throughout Europe that begin migrating into that region of what was once the Ottoman Empire. And they essentially take majority control of that land. And as a result, is that when the conflict begins, baby? Yeah, so not quite a conflict yet, but you have tension, right? You have kind of small uprisings here and there happening. And so, like I said, tension is there's something here brewing. There's something fishy afoot. Somebody's not happy. And that takes us to 1936 to 1939. It's World War II. America's not quite involved yet, but that is the Arab Revolt. And so you have Arabic and Palestinian nations beginning to revolt, and now they're getting violent towards their new Jewish neighbors. And this is when the tension first begins to spill over in 1936 through 1939, right? The Arab revolts. So that's a major marker in history, but this is like the first time where it's like, ugh, we might have just did something here. We might have created a whole new conflict. We might have opened up a whole new can of worms, right? So that the little conflicts here and there begin occurring, and that takes us to 1947. So this is immediately after World War II. And what's in parentheses there, baby? UN partition plan. The UN partition plan. And that essentially gives Jews, right, the Jewish Israelis, we'll refer to them as Israelis from here on out. I hate saying Jews. But that essentially gives Israelis more control over that landmass, right?
It says UN proposes a plan to create separate states for Israelis and Arabs. Arabs reject.
Okay. Yes. So the United Nations, it's this newfound organization among these superpowers, and it was created directly after World War II. And essentially, it's like all these different countries, they form an alliance together. And essentially, like this is how you police the world. So whenever somebody commits a war crime, it's like, who the fuck is gonna, let's say America commits a war crime, right? Who the fuck is gonna tell America to stop policing, like stop gassing people, right? We're the big guys on the block. You know what I'm saying? She's giggling over here. Well, we're the guys. Look, we're going off script tonight. This is the midnight show, but this is the situation room. There's some funky shit afoot, and we got to cover it. You guys are in my DMs. I'm waking up every morning seeing some horrific shit happening across the world. We got to cover this, right? I want to report the facts as accurately as possible. So, I've got my helper here, my lovely girlfriend. But look, we're going off script, all right? We are in rare form tonight. So if you guys are at home watching, you guys are driving your commute and doing your thing, you're out at the gym pumping iron, sit back, relax, get cozy, because we're going off script tonight. I have no time to sit here and be pretty. We got to cover the facts as they occur, right? And so my girlfriend here, if she giggles here and there, or you see me breaking eye contact to speak with her, don't worry about it, guys. It's all right. But we want to cover this shit correctly. So onward, as we were saying, baby. Where did we leave off?
We finished 1947. Now we're
1948.
1948.
Israeli independence. Yeah, so Israel becomes independent, right? Independence.
British mandate expires.
Yes. So, the British mandate, that occurred in 1920, right? And the British mandate essentially, once the Brits, through help of the Palestine, toppled the Ottoman Empire, the UK, the Brits, and France began to carve up different pieces of the Middle East. They divided power, they divided control within the Middle East, and the Brits controlled what was the Ottoman Empire. And when they did that, the Brits, they kind of began policing the area. And they made a mandate, again, the British mandate, that would see that Israel is now recognized as a free nation within Palestine, or what was the Ottoman Empire. Well, we get to 1948, you said? We get to 1948, and shit, the gig is up. The landlord's here. He's knocking at the door because that mandate expired. Israel says, I don't give a fuck. Do you know who our friends are? Britain? The US? Canada? Sorry, Jordan. Sorry, Egypt. Yeah, this piece of paper says I don't live here no more, but what the fuck are you going to do about it? Right? As a bald eagle flies and seen behind them. And so it's like they bully themselves. I don't want to say bully, but they coerce themselves into gaining power again of that region. And they say, I'm sticking my flag in the sand, baby. I'm not going anywhere. And this causes even more tension. And if I'm not mistaken, a war is declared, right? And this war is waged between Egypt, Syria, Jordan, and Iraq. And it's a 4 against 1. You got these 4 nations that all neighbor Israel versus Israel. And Israel whoops the fuck out of these guys. And you'll notice that that's a common theme throughout this here situation. Israel being ganged up on and just clutching the shit and beating the fuck out of all no, but they beat the fuck. They're just saying they beat the fuck out of all newcomers tested. I don't know. Anybody that tries it, they get their ass whooped. That's the power of having the West on your side, And so now you have the first major conflict after the British mandate expires and Israel declares that they own that piece of land, and Israel comes out victorious. This causes even more tension in the Middle East, and it actually displaces millions of Palestinians. So not only do you have angry Palestinians, not only do you have a Palestinian nation that feels that they have been, something that's rightfully theirs has been snatched away, but now these motherfuckers are homeless? Really? So, of course, violence is soon to occur. And that takes us to, we already at 67?
Now
We're at 67. That takes us to the 6-Day War. We're going to go back to middle school. We're going to go back to middle school history, where we had to learn about the 6-Day War. right? I recall being in 8th grade, Miss Cotham's class. I say, Miss Cotham, I hate to interrupt your lesson, but what the fuck do you mean that there was a war that lasted 6 days? Now, me being ADD and in school, I immediately began to kind of tune out her response, and I retained none of the information that she told me. But hey, kids, look, I'm now reciting information that I should have learned in school, so you actually will use some of that shit, all right? So pay attention. But yes, there is a 6-day conflict in the Middle East. And this 6-day conflict is against Israel, Egypt, Syria, Jordan. Who else? That's it. So it's 1 on 3. Iraq decides that they don't want no smoke this time around. You have a conflict that lasts 6 days, and again, Israel beats the absolute shit out of all their opponents. I mean, it's nothing shy of a massacre. And the result of this 6-day conflict, I mean, even though this war was 6 days, it's probably had the most dramatic after effect. Essentially, Israel took control of the West Bank. They took control of the Gaza Strip, and they took control of Sinai, what was under Egyptian control. So they essentially take control of the entire region of Palestine and Arabia, and they now control everything. So there's not really much to say because there's nobody to really test them. They own everything. They run shit, right? That's 1967. So now that takes us to
1993. When you said you want to talk about 1970s.
You're absolutely right, baby. I do want to talk about 1973. October 14th, 1973. Cigar break. Please give me a second. How we doing, baby? What time is it?
What time is it? 8:44.
8:44. I'll be just talking and I'll look up and be like, oh my God, I talked for a whole fucking hour. All right. October 14th, 1973. You have the Yom Kippur, I can never say this, Yom Kippur War. And it is a conflict between Egypt and Israel. I believe Egypt loses the conflict, but that's neither here nor there. It's a major conflict. And I want you to remember that date, October 14th, 1973, because it is significant to what is happening as we speak. Onward, baby. What we got next?
1993.
So now we're at 1993. And who's that? Reagan? Do you know who was president at the time? Sure, go ahead and look. So it's might be Reagan, it might be Bush Senior. Some old white dude is Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton. Damn, Bill Clinton. Hell of a try, hell of an attempt. Bill Clinton makes the attempt at officially creating peace in the Middle East. And he creates the Oslo Accord. I don't want to say creates, but more so mandates. He kind of oversees, he brokers this agreement between Israel and Palestine. And this would essentially say okay, look, motherfucker, you get this bit of land, you get that bit of land. Israel, you get this bit of land. Palestine, you get this bit of land. Israel, you get this bit of land. Palestine. We got to keep this shit fair. We're going to divvy up the land. You guys are going to work in unison, and you're going to be able to freely govern yourselves without interference or influence from Israel or Palestine. Just do your own things, but stop fucking shooting each other, guys. Jeez. Well, that was an attempt that was so close to being successful. Damn, Mr. Clinton, you were so close. But Palestine being very staunch, is that a word? Being very, what's the word? It's late, guys. Being very kind of unwavering in their beliefs. They say, look, Israel, Look, Mr. Clinton, we appreciate what you guys are doing. We appreciate the effort, but we're not going to, us being strict believers of the Islamic faith, we are not going to align ourselves with a country who has Playboy magazine as one of the highest grossing pieces of media that they produce. In other words, the West is fucked up, and we don't want a damn thing to do with any of you niggas. We don't want nothing to do with you, United States, and we don't want nothing to do with your buddies, Israel. So yes, we do see peace in the Middle East as the end goal, and hopefully we can achieve it one day, but we're not going to partner or align ourselves with either of you crazy motherfuckers. And so the Oslo Accord is a bust. It's a failure. And there's a sigh of desperation, because that brings us all the way. We're leaving the 90s. We're now into the 2000s, taking over from the 99 to the 2000s. And that takes us to what, 05 or 2000?
2000 to 2005.
So 2000 to 2005. You have what's called the second intifada, and the second intifada. I hope I'm saying that right. But this is the second uprising of Palestinians fighting against the Jewish settlers of Israel, aka like the old school Palestinian homeland. You know, at this point, I mean, we kind of skipped over some things, but there was like niggas getting assassinated in the 80s. Like there was some messed up shit that was happening, you know? So at this point, like tensions are super high. And now you essentially have territory that was agreed upon to be Palestinian being like gentrified by Israel. And look, I want to pause real quick. I want to make sure that I'm not drawing like any clear lines in the sand. This is a conflict that dates back to over 100 years ago, but this is a battle of ideology that does span back to like thousands of years. And I am very much far removed from it, you know? So I want to make sure that I'm not drawing sides here. Whatever facts that I'm stating, if you choose to draw your line in the sand and you choose to take sides, then more power to you. You know, I have what I believe. You have what you believe. I want to make sure that I'm getting this information off in a very unbiased way. Thus far, it seems like Israel is doing some fucked up shit on the surface, right? It's like, damn, y'all are taking land from, but if you look a little deeper into it, you'll see that there's not one victim in this situation. And I'll leave it at that. And so you have essentially Israel, Israeli citizens, they begin like quite literally like gentrifying like Palestinian territory, you know? Like you guys ever have like, let me think. Was there like a fucking restaurant that you and your family ever went to growing up? You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, we're going to fucking Uncle Fred's fucking burgers and fries. Oh yeah, Uncle Fred, he owns the joint. Yeah, that's our neighbor actually. He lives, yeah, it's a mom and pop business, man. And then you go there one day, you're 13, right? You're 13, you're entering puberty. Life already is fucking angsty enough. And you go to enjoy a burger at one of the, you know, your happy place, right? Uncle Fred's fucking burgers and fries. And then you see on the sign, you get there and you see a sign posted in the front of this vacant building that used to be Uncle Fred's Burgers and Fries. And it says that they were evicted. Uncle Fred's Burgers and Fries is no longer there. So you say, fuck, you're sad. You walk away. And then you come back a year later and Uncle Fred's Burgers and Fries is now a fucking Chili's? Really? You took this staple in the community, a mom and pop spot in the community that fucking gave you $100 when you were selling Boy Scout cookies in the 3rd grade, and you replace it with a Chili's? Well, that's what was happening in fucking Palestinian territories. Like prices of land and property in Palestine were being heavily increased, so much so to where Palestinians were forced out of their homes, and Israelis who were doing a lot better financially were able to move in and start buying up property. And through like price gouging, kind of kick these people out of their life. So even more tension is occurring. And was there any, so 2000, 2005, you have the second intifada. And so this gentrification of Palestine creates another uprising. But this uprising is not fucking sticks and rocks. This is not fucking cardboard cutout signs and blowhorns or whatever. This is AK-47s and grenades. This, go for it. Oh no, we're still in 2005. This is like a bloody uprising. This uprising that happened from 2005 or 2000 to 2005 is fucking gruesome. So much so to the point that Israel, they dust their fingers. They say, I'm done. We've tried. We tried in the 90s with Bill Clinton. We tried in the 80s. We tried to make peace with you guys. We're done. We've given up hope. And we now flash forward to the year 2007. Is there a special name for this event that happened in 2007, baby?
Gaza disagreement?
Yes, the Gaza disagreement. You have situated to the southwest of Israel this plot of land called the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip is roughly 141 square miles large. That's literally twice the size of Washington, D.C. So it's not much. But within that 140, do you know the Gaza Strip is 140 square miles? San Antonio is 490 square miles. There's 1.5 million citizens in San Antonio. Get on a 1604 at 5 o'clock in San Antonio. Pitch a tent. You're going to be there for a while. It's a lot of motherfuckers here in this fat ass city. Take the Gaza Strip, that entire territory. It's literally like a fraction of the size of San Antonio. Now stuff 3 million citizens inside of the Gaza Strip, right? Now take the tattered history of the Gaza Strip and couple it with the fact that they have one of the worst economies in the entire region of the Middle East. And they have complete control by the Israeli government, who in 2007 say, fuck y'all, we're out. We're going to literally, they pulled a Donald Trump. They built big ass walls and they completely surrounded the Gaza Strip and blockaded them off with like physical big ass walls, right? And they removed any of their resources from the Gaza Strip. So this is like food, their access to food and water, and they cut off industries from operating in the Gaza Strip. So you have like, there's no opportunity for employment and the whole situation is fucked up. And I learned something very fascinating about the Gaza Strip recently. And I just told my lady this and she was blown away too. It's 40% of the population in Gaza is under the age of 15. Give me a dramatic pause. 40% of the population within the Gaza Strip is under the age of 15. How that happens, I do not know. But if you look at a lot of nations that are struggling as far as their resources go, there often is big, what's the word? The infant mortality rate is really high. And the elder mortality rate, if you will, is really high. Generationally, they're fucked up and people stop producing babies. And so you'll have a generation where it's like, or you'll have a situation where like in most struggling nations, you'll have a nation of people that stopped having kids because of like a famine or something. And so you have an entire generation of like 80-year-olds and no kids. And so like all the 80-year-olds die off and you're now dealing with like crazy population disparities. So something similar is happening right now in Gaza. But however you fucking create a situation where 40% of the population, like damn near half the population is teenagers, I don't know. But that creates a situation where it's not looking very hopeful for the future either. So you have this Gaza Strip They have their food and water cut off. Any policing and influence of the neighboring Israeli nation is also cut off. And they have no ability to create wealth. The industry was removed. And they are bordered by Egypt. They are bordered by Israel. They are bordered by the Mediterranean Sea. All of which, aside from the Mediterranean Sea, obviously hate them and are not willing to trade with them. And they cannot receive any imports from the Mediterranean Sea because Israel controls the Mediterranean Sea. So these guys have literally been walled off and cut off from society completely. What happens when you remove a political authority figure from a region, a country, a population, a state, a territory? What happens, baby? This is a open-ended question. What happens?
People go crazy.
Yeah, people go crazy, but you create what's called a power vacuum, right? A dictator is still better than an empty throne. When we left, I'm not even gonna fucking get into that. Look, Israel left Gaza, and they created a situation where instead of Israel reigning supreme over the Gaza Strip, you had nobody reigning supreme over the Gaza Strip. You left a position of power that was just waiting to be filled. The Gaza Strip, this poor little territory, having no real financial stability, having no real military, having no real police force even. There's no one left to fill the seat of power. Enter Hamas, a radical, militant terror organization that was created with the sole purpose of the destruction of Israel in mind. The actual Palestinian army, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO, they also had a very similar goal in mind. They just wanted to see that Israel was not the dominating force in Gaza as well as the West Bank. The West Bank being the territory that borders Jordan that they also controlled, right? You follow me, baby? So they wanted to see that the PLO, they just wanted stability. And they were willing to negotiate peace with Israel. But that is the actual recognized military force of Palestine. But even they were with the shit. They might have been responsible for a couple of car bombs themselves, right? But even with that, the Hamas was like, y'all niggas is too soft anyway. Y'all niggas is still too soft. We're going to do our own thing. And they completely break away from the PLO. And they're also liberated from Israel. And so they're now their own thing. Because Israel don't fuck with them, obviously, and Palestine don't fuck with them. So they just do what the fuck they want, essentially. And we're going to flash forward now to 2008, spanning through 2014. And this is what we're familiar with. This is the era of, another conflict in the Middle East. Does it involve Americans? Fuck it. So this is the span where there's a bunch of little small uprisings and little not wars, but little battles and conflicts here and there. And we forget about it. You know what I'm saying? Drake just dropped fucking Take Care. Who's got time to worry about what's happening in Israel, right? Life is good at this time. And it's been like that all throughout the 2010s until we get to the early 2020s. Thank you, baby. Where on October 7th, 2023, you have sirens that that fill the air in Israel. The Israelis are caught off guard. What the fuck is going on? They begin to look up. Baby, grab the camera. A shooting star. Wait, a shooting star at I mean, the sun's out. How the fuck is there? There's another one. Is this a meteor shower? Oh fuck. Um, Sirens begin to fill the air within Israel, and Israel is bombarded with missiles being launched from the Gaza border. This begins at 6:30 a.m. The number is widely speculated, but it is believed, according to Israel, that 2,200 bombs were deployed, where missiles were launched from Gaza at 6:30 a.m. And according to Hamza, 5,000 missiles were launched. So it's kind of a widely debated number as to how many missiles were launched, but still, Israel is bombarded with a shitload of missiles, all hitting civilian targets. At the same time, you got motherfuckers in Gaza who begin to take control of bulldozers, like the shit you see on construction sites, and they begin like breaking down the walls that were built in 2007 that separate Gaza from Israel. They begin breaking those walls down with bulldozers, and motherfuckers with motorcycles, heavily armed, 2 per bike, began just spilling into the city by the hundreds. And then you got niggas on hang gliders. I read this. Niggas on hang gliders coming in. So it's a full on like takeover of Israel. Well, shortly after, Mohammed Diaf, the commander-in-chief of Hamas, releases a video claiming responsibility for the invasion. At 10:30 a.m., still October 7th, 2023, Israel begins to deploy jet fighters, and they begin dropping bombs on civilian targets within the Gaza Strip. Again, this is a little bitty plot of land that's filled with 3 million people. So you drop a bomb anywhere within Gaza, you're going to do a lot of fucking damage. And at the time of my recording this, they have struck over 70 targets within Gaza. I'm sure at this time right now as we speak, it's probably a lot more. But they went on a bombing frenzy within Gaza. We're now going to flash forward to 11:30 a.m. where you have Israeli president, please forgive me if I butcher this name, Netanyahu, who makes a public announcement that Israel is officially declaring war. And then you have 8:30 p.m., October 7th, 2023, where the U.S. Defense Secretary, Mr. Lloyd, whatever his name is, issues his condolences and, just to make ourselves relevant in the whole situation, right? Yeah, issues of condolences. But that's where we leave off. It's a really fucked up conversation. A really fucked up conflict. It's quite graphic when you look at the tactics that both sides are employing against one another. I mean, they're stooping pretty damn low, Again, I'm not here to pass any judgment. Feel how you may about it. I just want to pay my respect to the lives that were lost and the lives that continue to be lost in this ongoing conflict. And man, I pray for the children and the elders on both sides who have to deal with this bullshit, this fucking bullshit, because that's what it is. It's a bullshit fucking conflict over a land grab. What the fuck? So you're killing kids now? The whole thing is fucking ridiculous. And it was tough researching this. I saw a lot of fucked up shit, a lot of things that I wish I hadn't seen. But you guys have requested it, so I want to get this information out as soon as possible and as accurately as possible. We're doing it a little different this time. I've got a small studio audience, so shit, I'll open up the floor. Do you have any questions, baby? Anything that you're wondering about this whole situation? Not to put you on the spot, but I mean, anything, you know. We'll come back to you.
What do we do?
What
What can we do as people here in the United States? Like, what do we do?
what do we do here? So her question is like, what do we here in the United States do? Um, you say, do we watch it? Well, there's not too much that we can do, but there's a way that the United States has managed to gain political superiority throughout history. What we do when we come across a conflict, be it a natural disaster, a famine, a war, is we may not have the best strategy, but we have the most money to throw at this situation. I don't care where you draw your line in the sand. There are children who are suffering greatly on both sides who should not have to deal with any of this bullshit. I get so heated just thinking about it. So when this conflict is over, whenever it may be, we are going to continue on with our lives as normal. Those children who have to endure this shit cannot go back to school. They may not have a home to go back to. They may not have a life to go back to. We as Americans who are abundantly resourceful, abundantly plentiful in our resources, we have the ability to donate. So whatever side of the fence you're on, fucking donate. If you're one of these hashtag free Palestine guys, send $5 to children in Palestine. If you're one of these hashtag free Israel guys, send $5 to children in Israel. Because regardless of how you feel, kids should not have to suffer in this whole situation. So that's what I think should be done. You know what I'm saying? Take care of those who don't deserve what's happening to them, you know? Baby, think of another question. I want to answer one more question from you, and then we'll cut this off. But I do want to kind of go over some stats. We're probably at fucking 2 hours here, but who cares? We're keeping it raw, baby. We're keeping it raw. So when you're like looking at two countries that are warring, right? If you were to treat this shit, and I don't want to sound distasteful, but if you were to treat this shit as like a sporting event, fuck, or like what? If you want to speculate on the future and like determine what the outcome might be, then you got to start looking at some stats. Who's fighting who and who has what stat against the other person, right? And so I pulled some of the stats, and I just kind of wanted to see the raw ability, like the raw power that each nation has going into this conflict, right? So we'll start with Gaza. Here's some stats of the Gaza Strip. So their economy, their gross domestic product for last year, they grossed $2.9 billion. It's not. That's not the best for a territory with 3 million people. You know, 2.9 billion is not the best. Okay. Their military power, their military prowess is they have a really good rocket system that was funded by other radical militant groups in that region, right? ISIS, Al Qaeda, and so they have developed a really good rocket system that's actually able to penetrate the Iron Dome of Israel and make contact, and that's one of the reasons why the attack was so successful on the 7th. They have a really good rocket system, right? Their population size, as previously mentioned before, is 3 million strong, so 3 million people, which 40% are like kids. They are allied with Syria, Lebanon, and Iran. My girl's shaking her head. Yeah, it's not too impressive. It's not too impressive. And their physical, their geographical size is 140 square miles. So like Alamo Ranch. You know what I'm saying? Now we're going to look at some Israel stats. Okay. Their economy last year, they grossed $488 billion. Their military power, they're very tech savvy. They have, of course, the Iron Dome system, which is able to shoot down any rocket that enters their border. Really impressive shit. Actually gifted by the U.S. Their population size is 9.6 million, so a little over 3 times the population size of Gaza. And they are allied with... Okay, so first off, they're in the United Nations. The United Nations consists of 168 countries. Some of those notable countries that are partnered with with Israel is, of course, the United States, the United Kingdom, which is like what Britain. I mean, all the motherfuckers that speak funny. They're allied with Germany, Canada, Poland, the Czechoslovakian Republic, right? The Czech Republic, Australia, and Jordan and Egypt. Jordan and Egypt are 2 key allies because they both border Gaza Strip and the West Bank. And that's just like a few of the 168 countries that call Israel their buddies. Their geographical size is 8,019 square miles. So just they're this rather massive body of land. So it's like, it's a suicide mission. It's a suicide mission. My girl's sitting here. She's like, why the fuck? She's off camera. Like, why would they do that? Why would Gaza do that? Well, there's nothing more dangerous than a man that has nothing to lose. Half the population is children, and that said population, they don't have the resources to feed or care for those children. It's sad. The whole situation is so fucking sad. God, it's so fucking sad. And so when your back is against a wall, you'll take funding from anybody. That's why they're being funded by these militant jihadist groups. And you will do anything to be recognized globally as to what your people are going through, even if it means a fucking suicide mission. Like, these guys are they're going into this country knowing that they're not going to come back, but they don't give a fuck because there's a potential that it could set them up for a better future for their children. You know, the whole situation is so fucked up. You know, and again, what do we do from our position? Let's throw some fucking money at it, guys. In the description of this here video, I'll even link some organizations. I'll find some nonprofits that are directly helping these guys, children on either side, and let's take it from there. You know, babe, do you have any more questions?
Well, I was just gonna ask, like, with all this stuff going on with Ukraine and Russia,
okay,
and now this,
how
are you feeling about like the state of the world? Like, is there gonna be another world war? Like, are you feeling nervous about that? Like, how do you feel about all this happening?
So her question was like, with the state of the world, with there being a war going on in Europe with Russia and Ukraine, and now we have this, and you know, I'll even add to that, like the toppling economy that's happening currently in the West. You know what I'm saying? Like, things look real not too good. You know what I'm saying? Rather bleak. And she was asking, do I fear for like a World War III, or like, is this like, are we gonna come back from this? As far as what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, it's a proxy war, you know. If this is successful, then we essentially defeated one of 2 of our greatest threats on this entire globe without sacrificing a single U.S. life, which is dope. But the amount of billions that we have funneled into this war is fucking ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. I mean, you literally could have cured like world hunger like 20 times over, quite literally, with the amount of money that we've put towards this war happening. And so as an American, it's rather frustrating. But if this proxy war is successful, then damn it, Biden took a hell of a risk. But I guess kudos to him for doing that. and knocking out Russia without having to draft my black ass. That's cool. But then couple that with what's happening now in the Middle East. If it was like a conflict between like Israel and China, if there was another major player, then I'd be more concerned. But globally, I don't think really anybody is really fucking with Gaza. They're not members of the United Nations. Their allies are not friends of ours or the West. So I think what's to happen is, like, sadly, the Gaza Strip is going to be eradicated. What was left of any Palestinian influence in that region is going to now be squandered. It's a thing of the past, and that nation is going to be completely ruled by Israel, with heavy influence from the West. So you will see more attacks here and there in the form of like minor terror attacks, like car bombs here and there, a hijacked plane here, just small scale things. But I think Israel is going to wash Palestine. So it's sad for Palestinians that it had to be like this, but maybe this will bring new hope for the children of the Gaza Strip, not having to live in like some of the worst conditions on the fucking planet, So that's what I think the end result will be. I didn't do much research on like the Ukrainian war situation, so I don't really know like what to even add to that. You know what I'm saying? But as far as this situation, man, it's I don't think that there's going to be much global effect from this. So, but hey, good questions, baby. Do you have any more before we wrap it up? All right, guys. This has been another episode of the Midnight Show. My name is Iman. If you stuck around this far, then I thank you. Like I said, we kept it raw and real. We spoke from the heart. And at the end of the day, this is not about who's right, who's wrong. This is about establishing peace to two regions that really need it. So I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.